All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for your attention here. I know you guys don't like to listen to me talk, and I try to keep these bios as short as possible, but when you have such a distinguished business leader, it becomes a little bit challenging. So bear with me. I'll try to be as quick and summarize as well as I can here. Today, we're especially privileged to have Mr. Bill McDermott, who's appointed as the co-CEO of SAP in February of 2010, and will become the sole CEO effective this spring. As a member of the SAP Executive and Global Managing Boards, Mr. McDermott focuses on developing and executing SAP's strategy. SAP is the enterprise application software market leader with annual revenues of over $22 billion, helping companies of all sizes and industry run better. SAP has more than 65,000 employees, and its vast ecosystem enables nearly 250,000 customers in more than 188 countries worldwide. For those of you that studied anything about geography know that's just about every country. Mr. McDermott was first named to the SAP Executive Board in 2008 to manage the global field operations. During this time, he was instrumental in re-architecting the company's go-to-market strategy and advancing SAP to be among the world's most progressive employers for young professionals. Before joining SAP, he served as an Executive Vice President of Worldwide Sales and Operations at Siebel Systems and President of Gartner Incorporated, where he led the company's core operations. He also spent 17 years at Xerox Corporation, where he progressively rose through the ranks to become the company's youngest corporate officer and division president. Mr. McDermott is a member of several external boards, including the boards of ANSYS and Under Armour. He is an active member of the Business Roundtable and Business Council Association of Chief Executive Officers of leading global companies, and is a member of the Dean's Advisory Council for the Villanova School of Business. He has been recognized for outstanding business leadership by a number of organizations. In 2013, he was ranked number 2 on Glassdoor.com's list of top 50 highest-rated CEOs, with a 99% approval rating from his employees, and was in Irish American Magazine's Business 100 for outstanding business leadership. Mr. McDermott is an active community leader and strong advocate for corporate social responsibility, receiving numerous accolades and honors. He holds an MBA in Business Management from Kellogg School of Graduate Management in Northwestern, and completed the Executive Development Program at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. He received his bachelor's degree in Business Management from Dowling College. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Bill McDermott to Notre Dame and Mendoza.
Thank you very much, Dale. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Let's talk about something really important. Are we going to take care of Navy or what? No. There we go. Now we're talking. How many of you were born between 1980 and 1995? Okay. I want to talk to you today because I'm taking an exception to this Time article. On one hand, they kind of make the case that this millennial generation is all about me, 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 and it's the selfish generation. And on the other, they're basically saying you're a little upset because you're picking up the debt of the prior generation, and you're somewhere between those two worlds, and I do not believe that's true. So today, I'm going to talk to you about you and where I see the world going, and hopefully that'll be a lively discussion, and then we can bring it to Q&A later, and you can ask me any question that's on your mind. I'm really open to that, and I look forward to that. Winston Churchill once said, "The further back you look, the further forward you can see." So I wanted to give you a little piece of me today and give you a piece of my history. This is a town called Amityville, Long Island. Anybody from Amityville, Long Island? Babylon, Long Island. Jimmy's from Babylon. He could totally relate to the fact that this is taken off of the internet and it looks a lot better than the real thing. I mean, it's not even close. But I'm going to make pretend that it looks like this. Back in that era, I basically traded in 3 part-time jobs for 1 full-time delicatessen business. And what you have to do is make it work, find a way. And in that era, I had to find a way to make that little delicatessen business work. And the easiest way to do that was to think about the customer and who my customer was. My customer wasn't guys like me wearing suits and ties. It was blue-collar workers that were rich on Friday night and broke by Saturday morning. I had a new financing methodology. I gave them credit. They signed out in a book, and they always paid me back. Then there was the senior citizens about 2 blocks away. Did a little research on them and found, and I think you can relate to this, they don't like leaving the house. So we deliver. And then finally, there's these high school kids. And I got to compete with this big store called 7-Eleven. And the high school is where the podium is. 7-Eleven's where I am. And my business is way down here. So how do I get those kids to walk down and shop at my store? And it wasn't easy. But what you have to do when you're trying to figure out the customer is go see what the competition's doing for that customer. And there was this line, this big procession outside 7-Eleven, and they were letting kids in 4 at a time. And I asked the kid, why are you all waiting out here? There's plenty of room in that store. And he said to me, well, they think we're going to steal. They do what? So that weekend, I went to the mall, and back in that day, you actually had these video game machines that you plucked quarters into. And I found a way to get a video machine called Asteroids and then another one called Pac-Man into my store. And that was what drew the kids down. But then once you get them there, you have to treat them really well. You have to feed them well. And what you know about kids, you got to treat them like adults. And that's what we tried to do. And we let them in 40 at a time. And treating people the right way has a way of coming back to you, because one day I'm in the store and a young man comes up to me and he said, Bill, I just want to thank you. The lunch was great, and when I come to this store, and my friends feel the same way, we're treated with dignity and respect, we get good food, we play the video games. And I'll tell you something else. When we want to steal stuff, we go to 7-Eleven. It was interesting coming out of that delicatessen, because then I had to decide what I was going to do. So I didn't franchise it and become a Starbucks, but I did go to interview for the Xerox company. And I remember living in this little house in Amityville Island on a concrete slab, and it was on the water, the Great South Bay, and the house always flooded when you had a northeast storm. The day I went to interview for my job at Xerox, I had my $99 suit on from the mall. But I couldn't get to the first floor without my brother picking me up off the stairs to carry me out to the car, because I didn't want to get my $99 suit wet. My dad takes me to Long Island Railroad tracks. I'm getting out of the car. I look at my father and I said, Dad, I'm all fired up. I guarantee you I'm coming home tonight with my employee badge in my pocket. So my dad's like, well, Bill, don't put that pressure on you. You're a great guy, and just do the best you can. I'm coming back with the employee badge in my pocket. I get on the Long Island Railroad. I read this annual report about this guy named David Kearns reinventing Xerox and total quality management, and I'm convinced that I want to be the next David Kearns. But I get to the top of the 6s, and I had a little problem. Here's this guy, 21 years old, that went to Dowling College in Oakdale, Long Island, running a delicatessen business. And now I'm running into kids at Ivy League schools, University of Notre Dame type schools, looked a lot more polished than me. And I said, I'm in trouble. This is scary. And I said, well, what do you do? I have 500 people come in that store every day. So I just start talking to people and asking them what they want and what they're there for. And this is where I got my confidence back. Because one guy said, well, I'm looking at IBM and looking at Xerox and maybe Citibank. And another guy said, well, I got Morgan Stanley on the line, and I'm going to look at that because I'm kind of interested in banking, and we'll see what happens with this Xerox thing. And that's when I knew it was my day. Because I knew exactly why I was there. I was there to get that employee badge in my pocket before I got back that night. So, lo and behold, I get to the final interview that day. There was 8 of them. I'm in 9 West 57th on the 38th floor overlooking Central Park. And I said to myself, this is my moment. This is my day. And I will make it. So I have a great interview with the decision maker, a man by the name of Emerson Fullwood, who's still a great friend of mine today. And we get to the end of the interview, and he said, Bill, this was a lot of fun, great interview, and the HR department's going to get in touch with you in the next couple of weeks. And I said, Mr. Fullwood, I don't think you completely understand the situation, sir. To which he looked at me with a tilted head. I said, I haven't broken a promise to my dad in 21 years, and I can't start today. I promised him I'd have my employee badge in my pocket when I got back to Amityville tonight. Tilt ahead a little more. Bill McDermott, as long as you haven't committed any crimes, you're hired. And I said, well, I haven't committed any crimes. Does that mean I'm hired? So I give him the big bear hug. I run down to the 57th and 6th Avenue corner, Bun and Burger. I call up my mom and dad, and I said, hey, this is going to be a big day. We got the job. Break out the core bell. So I shot back to Amityville, Long Island, literally one of the great days in my life. It's not easy getting a job, your first corporate job. I'll tell you, it's tough out there. I was 21 years old. It was August, and I was a trainee selling door-to-door, knocking on cold doors for a living, selling boxes. I get to this one brownstone with this gentleman named Bob Ryan. And he said, well, Bill, this brownstone doesn't have an elevator, so you're going to have to carry that copier and that memory writer typewriter up these stairs, because I'm like the senior dude and you're the trainee. I'm like, this cannot be. I put it on my back. I walk up the floor, 4 flights of stairs, and I could feel the sweat dripping down my cheeks. And again, this was another $99 suit that I was a little concerned with. Probably soaking wet by the time I got up there. I walk into the brownstone, and I see this very attractive lady, probably from here to the post. So I'm looking at her, and all of a sudden, I have this hit my chest. And it was a giant cat that jumped off the filing cabinet onto my chest. And I could feel its nails cutting through my skin, but I'm like, I'm not worried about the skin, but I am really worried about this $99 suit now. So she comes out, and I have the cat in my arm. I'm petting the cat, good kitty, sweet kitty, love you kitty, kissing kitty, all this stuff. And she goes, you really like cats, don't you? I said, I sure do. And I could tell you, Garfield has nothing on this cat. So we get to talking about the cats, and the guy with me is like, hey, Bill, man, it's time to plug in the machines, do the demo, we got to get the sale. I'm like, it's okay. We're going to talk about cats. We never had to take those machines out and plug them into the wall because I had an 11 by 17 brochure, and I told her, when you take them out of the box, they got a green button, and what you do is hit the green button. It looks just like the one in the picture. Do you want the demo, or do you just trust me that you hit the green button? Oh, I'm good with the green button. And I said, how many would you like? She said, I'll take one of each. I said, thank you very much. We climb back down the 4 flights of stairs. We get on the curb. Bob Ryan says to me, Bill McDermott, you're either going to be the CEO of Xerox or you're going to go to jail. True story. So then I look forward, Those were great times. They were a lot of fun. But now we're in the current moment. And I'm looking forward to this digital world that we're all part of. And you are the future. You're absolutely the future of the world. In my opinion, this is the next great generation. You're digital. You're creating a lot of data with the Internet of Things. We did a survey on your generation, and here was the feedback. How do you feel about automobiles versus your devices? Well, we would rather lose our automobile for a year than lose our device for an hour. Fact. You're extremely interested in this idea of social and collaboration. Everything that you do is social. But what's interesting to big businesses, they need to pay attention because half the activity that you're doing now in social is tied into the brands of companies. So the idea of advertising and collaboration on these networks, whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook or any of the others, is going to be huge in terms of how companies have to think about running their business. And data is doubling in the world every 18 months. Doubling in the world every 18 months. So every CEO in the world right now is really crazed about how they're going to manage this big data challenge and how they're going to use data scientifically to get to you. This other thing about sustainability is interesting. You would rather work for a company that has a high purpose than get a promotion or a raise because you really feel that you have to be making a difference in the world. So you're ambitious, you're tough, you want to win, and you are absolutely the next great generation. That's why I take Time magazine and I push it to the side and ask them to do some more research. What we have to do is we have to get you out of conference rooms and offices and get you into the real world. This is a group of high potentials. We have 72 post-college graduates in SAP right now that have been identified as people that could run the company someday. And instead of sticking them in a conference room and telling them what to do, we said, go. Go meet real people in the real world. This is a scene from our Shanghai location where they're actually visiting and solving a problem of a charitable organization. Now, this charitable organization is like getting all the possible donations from America and China they can to solve some of China's most difficult challenges, but they don't have a software platform that can manage these transactions, create visibility to these transactions, and give people credit for the good things that they're doing. So these students are right there solving this problem, and they're doing it in real time. Now, we have this going on all over the place. I gave this speech to the Manufacturers Association of America in Washington, D.C. We all talk about unemployment and job problems. Do you know something? There's about 500,000 manufacturing jobs right now that need workers to fill them. But the problem is the workers that can fill them are getting too old to fill them. And the young people don't even want to work in these companies anymore because they're completely uninteresting. They're not digital, they don't have the tools, they don't see a future in it. And that's why companies like Harley-Davidson that take this kind of an approach, they consolidate 84 plants into one big one in York, Pennsylvania. They do consumer customized orders for every single customer that orders a Harley bike. They have a supply chain and a manufacturing line that's completely automated and digital. And young people love it because they're doing really cool stuff. And they think Harley is a company of the future. So you can be in an older business and still be hip and part of the future if you digitize everything. And that's where we see it going. Because I'll tell you what, companies that didn't get the memo, companies like Kodak. In 1975, Kodak had all the patents for the digital camera. And do you know something? They had a young generation walking into that boardroom then too. And they said, wake up. You got to digitize the camera. We're going into a digital world. And you know what the management team said? No, you don't understand. We're in the paper business. We're in the ink business. We print things. We're not in the digital camera business. So, as you've seen, as you dematerialize physical objects, you demonetize entire industries. You could say that is true for the digital camera and how Kodak got wiped out, but it's also true for GPSs. It's also true for flashlights. It's also true for so many objects that will be digitized, demonetized, and created for the history books, not the future. And why do I care a lot about this? Because we have to learn to embrace disruptive innovation. It was 2010. At that time, I became the co-CEO of SAP. We just came off of the financial crisis. The CEO was dismissed, and a co-CEO structure was put in place. For the first 2 weeks, my co-CEO and I only did one thing. We said, we're going to have a vision, and it will have a purpose, and we will have a strategy that is not all about where we've been. It's all about where we better go. So we determined ourselves to make the world run better and improve people's lives. But we only got there by asking questions. The first question was, if we weren't here, would anybody care? Does anybody really know us, and do we actually really matter? And then we said, well, probably we do. We're in 25 industries, 188 countries around the world. Industry value chains run their companies on our software platform. I mean, that's something. If we weren't around and we shut the doors, we'd let a lot of people down. So maybe it's our cause to make the world run better and use our technology as a conduit to making that happen. But that's not enough. We also have to improve people's lives, not just our customers, not just our employees, but also this massive ecosystem opportunity. We have nearly 70,000 people in the company, but we have 2.1 million non-payroll jobs that support this platform in 25 industries around the world. So if we can reach all that and create a virtuous cycle, we can be a significant player on the global stage. But we have to change. Why do we have to change? We're the #1 business applications company. We're #1 in analytics. We're good. We're #1. Yeah, but that's not where the world's going. The world's going to go for the device. Mobile is the new desktop. We have to own the mobile conversation on the software, the security, and the application layer, because that'll make things run better and improve people's lives. And they'll start to get a good user experience, because we never gave them one of those. The second thing is, with all this data on the Internet of Things, we have to prove that the database of yesterday is not good enough for tomorrow. And we took all these database books, stacked them up to the ceiling, got some very smart scientists, our original company founder and chairman, Hasso Plattner, who was possessed to prove that these books were absolute nonsense. So he took some 20-somethings, 20-year-old students, and said, I want you to prove that this is nonsense. There's no reason why a database cannot act as the iPhone does in your pocket or Google does for the worldwide internet with multi-core processing in all things being done in real time. Why is it that an enterprise can't ask itself a question and get an answer, yet any citizen of the world can ask Google a question and get an immediate answer? Doesn't make any sense. So that led to a breakthrough innovation of something we call HANA. HANA is the world's fastest database, and it's the total game changer that will reinvent SAP, but also change the entire industry value chain of how big data gets managed in the world. You heard it here. Why? Because it's transactions, it's analytics, it's predictive, it's cloud, it's machine to machine, it's social, and it's all the things that the world needs, but it's in one box. It compresses data, and it operates at breathtaking speeds. And it's about the size of a PC. Change the game. The third thing was the cloud. And you keep hearing a lot about the cloud. And you'll hear a lot more about it now that Mr. Snowden has really made it a big issue. And people right now, all they talk about is the cloud. There's the public multi-tenant cloud for the line of business executive. You're the head of sales, procurement, HR. You want what you want it fast, and you want to download it and be off and running. But then there's the CEO that's got to run a company, and typically they're going to want to take all the assets of the company in a private cloud environment where it's highly secure and high performance. And this is the vision that we see, where you can put all the operations of a company on one database. Why does that matter? Because in the world we live in today, for every dollar spent on IT, 90% goes to nonsense. Hardware, services, waste, keeping the lights on, keeping the trains running, nothing. Only 10 cents left over for innovation. We see a world where at least 50 cents on a dollar has to go to innovating, changing business processes, and running companies better. And that's what you can do in a mobile, real-time, cloud-driven world. And you've got to be able to operate between different environments, whether it's on the device, on the premise, or in the cloud. It's got to be integrated. And the massive challenge that will come for a lot of best-of-breed companies is they may be best at one thing, but they don't breed. And that's the key. You're going to have this integration layer in the cloud that's going to be massively opportune for your careers and your futures. So we also started to think a lot about the curiosity deficit. And we said, why is it that when you're 5 years old, you ask like 100 questions an hour, When you're in 5th grade, you're probably down to about 20. But by the time you get out of high school, you're down to like 1 a month, you know? And when you go into the corporate world, and it's like, whatever you do, don't ask a question. You just get fired for questions around here. So there's this whole curiosity deficit. And what we want to do is bring the world back to asking thoughtful, provocative, interesting questions that bring about better solutions, as opposed to making statements. This curiosity deficit, ladies and gentlemen, the world needs you. Ask great questions. The other thing the world needs is the world needs to build careers. We've really gotten sloppy at this because your generation demands that companies understand that it's not just about a job. Because if it's just about a job, you'll stay about 18 months, best case, maybe 2 years. But if it's about a future and it's about a career, you can kind of change the world. So what we've tried to do is really get involved at the university level, where we're now participating with 1,600 major universities around the world, especially fond of the University of Notre Dame. And what we try to do is basically share our story, share the technology, such as HANA, which Notre Dame has been an early adopter of, create opportunities to learn on the technology, but most importantly, focus on you. Because it's not about recruiting you. I'm not selling jobs. What it's about is the ecosystem. For example, in the Middle East, you look at kids today, they're pretty much going to government jobs. You know, you pump oil out of the ground, it sells pretty well, and there aren't a lot of IT jobs around until you basically say, no, 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 there's a global world. We're going to transform the Middle East, but also you can work for SAP or you can work for the ecosystem, and you don't have to just stay in Qatar. You can go anywhere you want in the world. And we'll open up a global opportunity in this discussion. And this is in partnership with the public sector, the private sector, and a broad ecosystem of companies that kind of get it. Andre, where's Andre? You're here? One of my great interns right there. We'll keep him going. We'll keep you all going. It's like really keeping the company young. So we're trying to make our company younger by 1 year each year. Mathematically, a very hard thing to do. But that's the goal. Why not? Push them. You know, I was in the University of Notre Dame, and I got a question, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, where somebody was like, well, Bill, you know, in terms of managing career, how do you feel? You know, do you keep them on the bench, the young ones, in training classes? You know, what's your process for mentoring young talent and getting it in the game? And my lesson learned is go in the game. Don't sit on the bench. Don't wait too long. Play the game. And play the game to win. When John Kennedy, 52 years ago, had a vision to send a man safely to the moon and return him safely back to Earth, it was real simple. The average age of the individuals that worked on that mission was 26 years old. And if you saw Apollo 13, the movie, the character Ed Harris was playing was 31 years old. So why is it that when we walk into boardrooms or we walk through the senior management ranks, we can't seem to find this? So what I've done in our company is I've challenged every single board member in the company to have a 20-something working for you that's running a really big business. And every time they're like, gee, I mean, that's a stretch, that's a reach, isn't it? I'm like, I don't know. Zuckerberg seems to have done pretty well. He did Facebook at 20. Let's give it a shot, see what happens. Then the other piece is this idea of the wisdom of the crowd. For example, I'm working on a new brand campaign, and I want to get the ideas from everybody I possibly can, as fast as I possibly can, so I can get a campaign to market with the best possible thought leadership at the lowest possible price and the quickest cycle time. I didn't make this up. I learned it from a company called PopNet. And what they do is they do that for a living. and they reach out to marketeers in their social network, and they get the feedback as quick as you can imagine, and they pay them for it. And so we're internally now learning so much about this. I'll give you an example. One of the reasons I left Xerox when I did, after falling in love with the company for 17 years, is I kept going into these dull meetings on how we were going to cut expenses. And I'm like, this can't be. I'm on the 29th floor in Toner Tower in Rochester, New York, again, talking about the expense memo to all employees on how we can cut expenses. And when the memos don't work, let's just start cutting jobs. And then let's unleash ourselves. Let's get really creative and wipe out the water coolers and stop the donuts. I'm like, this is not what I want to do. I want to grow businesses. I want to make things happen, you know? So you have to accept at some point that those original dreams can change, and you can augment that along the way, especially because you don't want to get stuck and you don't want to be left behind. You want to be where the future is. I had an expense situation of my own. And actually, it was the last quarter that we just reported earnings on. So I said, we need to take out X amount of silly stuff. And instead of doing the memo, let's ask some of our young generation employees what we should do, because we're just not that good at this around here. Guy came back to me instantaneously. He said, Bill, the reason you guys aren't any good at it is because we don't know what you need. Why don't you put a thermometer up on the portal? And every day that the quarter goes on, just give us a readout on how we're doing and give people credit for the ones that are doing the best at taking that waste out so we can get the leverage at the end of the quarter. Unbelievable. First quarter, we've really had tremendous success in this one concept and had people excited about doing it as opposed to feeling bad. Wisdom of the crowd. So where are we now? I think we're really clear with each other. The world is unbelievably exciting. I have never seen opportunities out there like I see now. And this is your time. And I think at the end of the day, you've got to digitize the world. We need your ideas. We need you to make companies great again. And if you ask me, after it's all said and done, looking back on it for 30 years, what is the one thing that is the biggest difference maker of all? You gotta want it more. So when you go to your classes, or you dream the big dream in your sleep, or you commit yourself to excellence in your life, you gotta want it more. Because for all the things that you don't know, if you want it more than anybody else, people like me will be waiting for you with open arms, because we need you, because this is the next great generation. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I would like to thank you so much, and I also want to thank one person in particular, because without him, I wouldn't be here, and the relationship I built with Notre Dame would not have been possible, and that is Mr. Lou Nanni. And Lou, I just want to say thank you as my great friend and an amazing ambassador of the University of Notre Dame. Thank you for the opportunity that you've given me, and the friends that I've gotten to meet as a result of you. And of course, I'd like to thank all these guys, but if I do that, they'll be like, oh, come on, Bill, you're wasting my time. So, want to do some Q&A? Hi. Thought you had a question. You better start it off. Sure, Jimmy.
Bill, and this ties exactly corporate facility, but let's take somebody that's later in his career, like me.
Yes.
Okay? And how do I make sure that I get more in tune digitally this side? I've got a situation where if I want something, I ask it, they do it, I don't know.
Right.
What should I do so that I'm not asleep when all these things are going on, and I don't know the cloud.
Right, right.
And I mean, what would your recommendation? How can I wake up to what I'm missing, and how should I be? Now, I can do email.
Right. Of course.
All right. But I mean, I got to get better at that.
Right.
I don't really know where to start.
Well, I'll tell you, in a business context and then maybe a personal. On the business side, what changed everything for us is getting everybody mobile and getting everybody on a device. But everybody has to work with the same facts. Evidence is the key. So as a man who's run an incredible company, you know that if you're looking at the data and the information matters to you, everybody else cares about the data and the information. So what we did is we put our company, the entire 20-plus billion software company, on one common platform and one database. And every employee got a device that connects into the data they need to see and the data they need to know about in our information system. So for example, if I flew from Philadelphia this morning to South Bend, and whether I'm in the air or I land, and I ask one question, "Dear Lou, I just don't understand what's going on with GM. 2 weeks ago you said, and as I looked at our real-time customer relationship management system, it's just not tying for me." Now, Lou and I are going to have a really interesting conversation about that development, but Lou is going to tell 10 people, "Dude, let me tell you something. This guy's on the data.
Yeah, right.
This guy's watching what's going on around here. Just update the system." I don't have to put out nasty grams and memos and pep talks. It's the details. Life is a combination of vision and details. And tying those two things together makes you a very, very serious asset to your business, to your company. So I think that's the business side. The personal side, Jimmy, what I do, because I'm like you, I don't know anything compared to probably anyone in this room. So I just ask them. And I ask people around me, what do I do with social networking? For example, Twitter. I was petrified of Twitter, like a lot of CEOs are, because they're like, oh, now I'm out there. But I fell in love with it. Because, I got to get it all into 140 characters, so you got to be tight. I'm on my way to Notre Dame today. I tweeted. You could check it out if you choose to pull it up. You could tweet me back. I'll tweet you back. And I'm getting a different kind of conversation going. And that is the authentic conversation. And it's unfiltered by kind of the corporate bureaucracy, which is why I think Twitter is probably going to be a very outstanding brand and very successful company. So I asked them, what do I need to do? How do I get it? Twitter was my recent one. I did the Facebook thing. I'll give you an example on Facebook. I mean, it's like, look, I don't really care what you had for breakfast this morning, right? And that's kind of how I started out. Gee, what'd you have for breakfast this morning? Can we come up with a better question than that? How about dinner last night? But then I started to really think about it, and I talked to my millennials who are with me here, Karina and Nick, and they're like, Bill, you don't get it. I'm like, wow, what don't I get? It's all about the likes, man. And one woman that works for me, her name is Hannah. We had this meeting last week in New York. I let Jimmy and Lou hear Tony Bennett singing at 87 as if he was 17. And this young woman loved Hillary Clinton. She met Hillary Clinton at the event. And she got 293 likes of her picture with Hillary Clinton. She told me, this was the best thing I've ever done on social. I love Hillary. I've modeled my whole career after Hillary. And I got to meet her. I put the picture up on Twitter, and I got, Facebook, and I got 293 likes. That meant something. I had no appreciation for that. I would have no idea. So, questions. That curiosity, That help you, Jimmy?
That's good.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for your talk. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I have a question about technology's place in the workplace. You talked about SAP's vision to just make companies better and empower them to make a difference. As you think about making companies better, I think about technology's role, how it's revolutionized the workplace over the last 30 years. We've seen staggering gains in productivity. Yet, we seem to be working more hours, and real wages have pretty much been stagnant over the last 30 years for wage earners. So is this the way of the future? Is this what technology is going to be bringing, or is the promise going to eventually change, and how do we change that?
I think the big idea, so the question is, technology and the role in the economy, and technology not just making things better, but can it lift people up? Can we create jobs and opportunities and all the things that go with a success? The jobs are going to go where the ideas are. One of the big learnings I've had is this concept of design thinking and innovation. And again, this is that intellectual curiosity where you ask the questions. So I don't think about technology for technology's sake. I don't do code. I think about technology in terms of how it can help you and your company and how it can change your game. So here's a couple of examples. If you think about design thinking and innovation, it has basically three concepts. The first concept is desirability. Do we have the big idea? If there's no big idea, stop the conversation. Go ask some 20-year-old people to come back in 24 hours with a big idea. You'll have them from the ceiling to the floor. Desirability. The second thing is feasibility. We got the idea now. Do we have the plan? Can we actually pull it off? So many IT projects have disappointed so many people because they haven't thought through actually implementing it the right way and getting the outcome. I'm not going to get into any websites in Washington right now. And then after you've done desirability and feasibility, there's viability. And the idea of viability is, and you know this, don't waste your time going into the boardroom unless you can move the needle and really drive something that has a big business outcome associated with it. So long gone are the days of buying IT because I want to solve the Y2K issue, or going to the cloud because I have to be cool and say I'm in the cloud. Now it's all about big idea, good plan, big business outcome. For example, you talk about technology and you talk about outcomes and can it make people better. Harley-Davidson's an example of a manufacturing company that's doing all that. But they had to completely rethink, fundamentally, the entire supply chain and manufacturing process to pull it off. Had they not had the SAP software in the heart of that, you couldn't satisfy you. You're a Harley biker, you like to ride on the weekends. You want to order something on the fly on your mobile device when you stop from Harley. You want a direct-to-consumer relationship. I want to have a red bike. I don't like the one that's in the magazine. I can customize it. They can customize the color. All right. SAP. I got to grow. I got to do things. Where am I going to grow? Well, first of all, you have to have China. Well, how am I going to get China? You have to innovate in China for China. Yes, technology is important, but so too is culture. So we had to invest 7,000 jobs in China to develop software platforms in China for China that China could export to the rest of the world. Why did that idea matter? Because the ecosystem around those 7,000 jobs is over 100,000 jobs. Now we're moving needles. So I think it's, partially we're in a global economy and things are changing. And the jobs might not necessarily be in Missouri. And then the second thing is technology is a conduit to the big idea. People have stopped asking curious questions about big markets and big opportunities and design because they're so focused on the next 90 days and making the quarter. That's the key. We got to think long-term, start dreaming again. Dreams are good. I tell people, hey, why are you trying to look busy? I would rather walk past your office if your shoes were under the desk, you had your socks up on the desk, and you were looking out the window doing nothing. And I look at you and I say, what are you doing? Nothing. Why are you doing nothing? I'm thinking. Cool. What are you thinking about? Now we're in a real conversation. The worst thing you could do is show up at an office and play office. We don't play office. Very bad. Don't play office. If you need to play office, take a rest. Take a couple of days off. When you come to office, think, ask questions, big ideas.
Hey, Bill, I checked. You only got 7 new followers after that plug. So would you say something else about the football team? Maybe that will help.
I know. If I start talking about Notre Dame football, I'll be way out of my league.
Tell them about sports and technology, why we went into that.
Thank you. So this is an interesting one that Lou and I know very well. There's a guy by the name of Jed York. He did graduate from this phenomenal university. And he's opening up a new stadium in Santa Clara, California in 2014. So I run into Jed, and he's a visionary owner. And he wants to completely fundamentally rethink the fan experience. Why is it that the fan experience doesn't start in your living room as you're playing around with data and your favorite players and you're kind of interacting with statistics before you even get to the stadium? And then when you come to the stadium, based on your own free will and your choice to let the team know about you, why is it that we don't know Jimmy's had a seat at the 50-yard line for the last 20 years, and his new favorite player is Colin Kaepernick, and he happens to be with his nephew who has a birthday on this specific day? And wouldn't it be thoughtful if Colin dedicated a little bit of a break on the jersey and the team came over with an ice cream cone? And incidentally, I personally don't want to wait on a line to get to the restroom. I'd rather look at my mobile app and have my mobile app tell me the line's 7 minutes long right now, and I watch the meter go down, and I'm comfortable at 30 seconds. 7 minutes is too long for me. And then why is it that I can't have like an unbelievable day in my life, up to and including when I leave the stadium and I'm on my ride home? If the team didn't make it that day, Vernon Davis basically said, hey, sorry, we didn't have a good day, but I still love you, man, and I'm coming back stronger next Sunday. Please come watch the San Francisco 49ers. And then Roger might have been in a situation where there was a brawl in his section because somebody drank too much, and the team saw what was going on digitally. Security managed the situation, but because he's such a good guy, we move him down right on the field so he's not inconvenienced any further, and he can't wait to come back to the stadium again. Now, that's the team taking care of the fan. Then there's all the operations for how you optimize the team and profits. But then you go back to the league and you go to Roger Goodell and say, hey, there's this visionary leader, Jed York, of course, because he went to the University of Notre Dame. And then you say, well, why don't you do this for the league? And why don't we run big data and fantasy football on SAP HANA so every millennial can just ask any question they want and get an instantaneous answer? And then why don't we take that idea and do it for, the NFL, the NBA, the Major League Baseball, women's tennis, soccer, all over the world? And then why don't we also wake up people? Because if I take all those sports in the United States, and I take cricket, I take soccer, and field hockey, just take those 3 global sports. If I add up every American sport, it's not as big as cricket, it's not as big as field hockey, it's not as big as soccer. So when we go after an idea, you got to think global and how you can transform the fan experience in a global world. And that was the idea that led to a new vertical for us, a great outcome for Jed. And because we co-innovated together in trust and friendship, now I've been able to scale that and create what we think will be easily $1 billion US business. Because sports wasn't really managed well. And the University of Notre Dame is ahead of all the other universities, and you're way ahead on these ideas. Yes?
Your slide, Push Them, got me thinking back 10 years ago, how SAP took a young media IT professional from the cornfields, literally the cornfields of Indiana, and got me to the Washington Post project. And it developed me, transformed my life as far as pushing them. And I can't emphasize that enough about what SAP did for me.
Wow.
I don't want to let you off the hook so easily, though.
Please.
You're an innovator, you're a thinker. You and Barack on the courts at Newtown Square, maybe some 21, 2 out of 3. What do you advise him? How do you kind of corral in the healthcare website? What would you suggest to him?
Well, I can only go from history. when the whole TARP issue was going on, you know, if you remember that, the big issue was, where's the money and where's the jobs? Remember? And where's the transparency? Because it's your money, and there's 800 million US dollars floating around out there, and nobody knows where the money is. Even worse, nobody knows where the jobs were. So here's an example of design thinking and innovation. We came into that situation just like we would have come into this one if we were invited to that party. And we basically said, okay, how can we do this on a shoestring budget in a cloud environment where anybody can access any ANSA data they want in any one of the states in real time on their mobile device? Very simple. We did that project, when that transparency project for the United States government, in 3 months. The next closest time frame that was quoted against us was 1.5 years. We did it for $5 million US dollars. $5 million. The next closest bid was over $1 billion. You can ask people like Earl Devaney, who was one of the key guys working for Joe Biden at the time. He said it was the most breathtaking thing he'd ever seen because it was completely simple. What we did, we put all the data on HANA, we put it in a private cloud environment, and we provisioned it to the mobile. Unbelievable. Design thinking and innovation is the way. We got to make sure people aren't selling stuff. They're actually really thinking about the business process, the feasibility of the plan, and then the viability. Half the things happen in Washington today on the IT side because somebody has budget and they have a problem and they're going to hit that problem with a hammer. What we need to do is rethink and redesign the whole thing when we're not in a crisis and basically have a vision around how can we do this fundamentally different than we've ever done it before. And I think it starts with good questions.
Just a second earlier, go ahead.
Thanks for speaking with us today. I'm actually from Long Island as well, so kind of hit a chord with
Whereabouts?
Amityville, Garden City.
Nice, that's a good area. I used to date a girl in Sands Point, and I know that was a good place.
No, the deli sounded great. I would have loved to have visited that.
I know they question whether they should let me in the neighborhood over there, but I made it through a couple of times.
Something tells me you can get in now. I wanted to ask specifically about SAP, having kind of a German culture, you going over as an American. I just thought you might have some interesting perspective there.
That is a really very important question. Because, first of all, one of the things you got to think about is this global world that we live in. So I'll just give you a few things that I've learned a lot from. One, you know, I'm a hard-charging personality, okay? But you can't walk into Germany and think it's the same forum as New York City or even South Bend, Indiana. There's culture. There's decorum. There's a difference in the way you present yourself. There's a difference in the way you receive people. As an example, in the boardroom of a German company, you not only have external directors like you have in America with the management team, but you have employee representatives. So employees have board seats on the board of directors of German companies, and they have the same voting rights as an external director. So now I've got the Workers' Council and the employee representatives and that whole body of political capital to manage, as well as the external directors, the management team, the capital markets, and the employees. I think it makes you better because you have to really think through things in a very fundamental way. Because if you show up to those meetings and you're not in the details, it shows up real fast. So that's one big learning, really big learning. I'll give you a second learning. First of all, I was honored that I got the chance at SAP because I think it's a great company. And at the time, America was the Achilles heel of SAP because we were moving people from Germany into Newtown Square, Pennsylvania, and having them compete against the toughest competition in Silicon Valley. you look like a quick study. I don't think you need a formula for me to tell you that didn't work out so well. So when I came in, there was 5 CEOs in 6 years. They were getting bounced out faster than baseball managers. I get in there, and we're going to change everything. We're going to just do one thing. I didn't ask people to do 2 or 3 things. One thing. We are going to focus on the customer. We are going to focus on the customer. We are going to deliver value to the customer, and we are going to have a value-based DNA in the culture for the customer. That's all I want you to do. You don't have to do anything else. Nothing else has to come into your mind. We completely rethought the company from a technology company to a knowledge company and a value delivery company, because it was always about deriving the value from the investment to this very important question. It wasn't about selling you a piece of technology. It wasn't about saying mine's better than theirs. The third thing I give you is when I became announced as the sole CEO of SAP, which takes place at the shareholder meeting in May in Germany. Incidentally, when we do a shareholder meeting, most American companies, you have a shareholder meeting, it's like, there's 10 people there because you told them there was free donuts. So they come for the donuts. In Germany, there's 10,000 in a hockey stadium, and they all actually really care about what you have to say. So it's a whole different experience. But when I was announced as the sole, we did this deal in New York City, the Hudson Yards project, and I did it with Steve Ross on a handshake, Jimmy. I basically said, I believe in this idea. Mayor Bloomberg believes in this idea. You believe in this idea. We're partners. And we just trusted each other on a handshake. That got back that Bill, now that he's become the sole CEO, is probably moving the headquarters to New York City, and probably all 20,000 jobs in Germany could be up for grabs. Of course, nothing could be further from the truth. Having said that, I made sure I announced that I'll have a residence in Heidelberg. Culturally sensitive, aware to the whispers, listening to the wisdom of the crowd, calmed it down with one decision. Didn't need to do a memo, didn't need to have a town hall meeting, just needed to make a real estate decision. Now everybody's good. Something about,
You speak German at that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, Jimmy, so Jimmy's saying, well, I speak German at the shareholder meeting in May in Germany. So I've been doing these shareholder meetings now for, I think this will be my 6th year. And as co-CEO, it'll be my 4th year. And I always open up with sort of the first sheet of music in German. And of course, I memorize how I'm supposed to say it because I really don't know how to speak German. But everybody's on translation that's out in the crowd. And English is basically one of the real, common languages of the world. So most people understand it, but the ones that don't, they get translation. So Jimmy, I keep it going a little bit.
They appreciate it.
And you show some character. Well, when I went to Puerto Rico, one of my assignments was Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. My son Michael was just born. Julie and I made a decision as a couple that I would go scout out Puerto Rico. I was told that, don't worry about Puerto Rico. You can get a job in Manhattan. We'll give you can run New York City. Yeah, but Puerto Rico's available today. It's a career discussion. But Puerto Rico's available today. Why would I want to wait till tomorrow for New York City? Oh, but you're a New York guy. You love New York. Yeah, but opportunities in Puerto Rico. Yeah, but they're 86 in the stack rankings. They're dead last. The place is a disaster. Sounds like they got no place to go but up. The opportunities today. I fly from Manhattan. My son is 6 days old. We're living in an apartment in New York City. I said to Julie, you trust me? I'm going to go scout this thing out. I'll know. And that's the one thing, you get the instincts, right? I go to lunch at an Argentinian steakhouse with the other executive management. We're having sangria within a half an hour, and we're taking pictures. I thought I was either Boris Yeltsin or Bill Clinton at the time because all we did is take pictures. So I love these guys. They're fantastic. They just want to take pictures and have fun. So it was unbelievable. So they said, are you happy with us? I said, I love you guys, but you got a little bit of a challenge because I got to get American Airlines back to New York City tonight. So I got to pick out my condo so I can tell my wife that we're moving. And I got about 3 hours to buy a place or rent a place before I go back to New York. Don't you know? We got it done that day. and the stuff was on a container going to Puerto Rico. We went from last to first. Here's a great lesson. Why did we go from last to first? Learning. Culturally sensitive, right? First of all, I read Spanish for Gringos. And I got my street language down. But the second thing I did is I did every single meeting in Spanish. And I made so many mistakes. I could be saying, and it's sunny out today, and they break out hysterically laughing. I'm like, what are they laughing at? You know? And it's just Bill messing things up again. But you try. And here's what I learned from this experience. I asked them, why are you guys doing so bad? And they basically told me. The wisdom is always in the crowd. Here it was. Number one, we want to know what you want us to do. Wow. Can you imagine a management person having to figure out what do you want us to do? So you got to have the vision. The second thing was, we want to be motivated. All the other guy does is cut cost. Takes away the water. Drives us nuts. But the third thing, and the most important thing, was the ice is sealed the deal. The icing on the cake. We want to have our Christmas party. They took that away too. But not just any Christmas party. We want to have it at the El San Juan Hotel. And I said, well, okay, so now we're amping it up. What do you want to have happen at the El San Juan Hotel? We want to have Gilbertito Santa Rosa because he's the #1 salsa singer in the world, and we want to dance until we fall. 24 hours later, we call an all-company meeting. We bring everybody in from Puerto Rico. Guys, I'm very happy to inform you. The water's been restored. We're going to focus on the customer. I booked Gilbertito Santa Rosa for the Christmas party at the El San Juan Hotel, and now all you got to do is be #1. We go from 86 to #1. Make me look good. They went from 86 to #1. We danced till 3 o'clock in the morning at the El San Juan Hotel. I go to Gilbertito. I'm like, Gilbertito, you're on fire, man. Me and Julia dancing. It's unreal. You're on fire. And I said, whatever you want, just give me 1 more hour. Senor, this is the closest I've ever been to death. Please leave me alone. You can't make it up.
Thank you for coming to speak today. My name is John Vernon. I'm originally from Annapolis, Maryland, but I will definitely be rooting for Notre Dame this weekend and not Navy. So in one of my classes, we were discussing security issues by companies. We know hackers and people will exploit technology and try to invade companies and businesses and hack them. So I just was curious what you guys are, or what steps you're taking on the secure side to help confirm that businesses and that their information is going to be safe.
Sure. First of all, I'm a big fan of Maryland. I'm there in Sagamore Farm all the time with the owner, founder, and chairman of Under Armour, the great Kevin Plank. I've been on that board since 2005 when they were pre-IPO, $250 million US company. They have an $8.5 billion market cap today because he's an innovator, he's a dreamer. So I'm a big fan of Maryland. University of Maryland football is where he came from with one idea. I'm going to do T-shirts that dry faster, and now he's a billionaire. Don't you love America? Now, as it relates to the whole security thing, what we try to do is not talk publicly about security because every time you do, guess what? You wake up every head case that wants to prove you wrong. So, #1, be humble when it comes to security. #2, we build a system, we designed and engineered it from scratch. So what you can do when you do that is you design every angle of security into every interaction and every application of our business suite. That's what we call it. And we work with world-class companies all over the world and manage the most complex operations of the biggest companies in the world. Whether it's Procter & Gamble or Walmart, they're all running SAP. Whether it's JP Morgan Chase or Morgan Stanley or Bank of America, we're in there. The other thing that we did is we worked very closely with the NSA and other organizations that have very special operations, like the United States Army and the Navy is a couple of examples, where we have to think through every pivot point in security. So you kind of get built up and you get fortified around all the things you don't know. And you got to keep working on it each and every day. And every day, it's getting more dangerous out there, and it's getting more difficult out there because there are countries in the world that have a complete focus on doing harm to the security system and the systems of the United States. So we're in that conversation as well. So just stay at it. I'll tell you a couple things. One is data scientists by now in 2017, there'll be like a 35% shortage of jobs. These are going to be extraordinarily high-paying jobs. They are there for you to take. And the other piece is security. If you can get your arms around data science and security in the world of IT, I would find it very hard to believe with a University of Notre Dame degree, you won't be an extremely highly paid, successful person if that is your interest.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
No more questions. I know that slide says one question a month is the average. You've been here 2 months, so in the backlog, you owe some questions. So I'll give you a chance to think about it here, otherwise I'm going to start singing Navy fight songs. But anyways.
Yes, sir.
That worked.
I'm good. So I was really interested in what you're talking about with demutualization and demonetization. I was wondering, like a company like SAP, do you guys sort of target obsolete companies and products that you think might be right for that sort of process when you're trying to have an on-time?
Well, I think it happens so quickly these days, you know. It's kind of like the GPS industry, right? You know, it wasn't that long ago where a lot of folks were buying GPS systems for their cars. And if I travel with my sons and I have a GPS system in my car that's on, they just think it's hilarious. It wasn't that long ago that, you know, we had like flashlights laying around the house. And if we turn on a flashlight now in my house, it's kind of like, didn't you get the memo? So what's happening is anything that can be replaced by a device or a digital piece of technology is just happening in cycles right now of 0 to 6 months. So as we think about businesses and companies, what we try to focus on is companies that are run by bits and atoms as opposed to things, because the things are going to get wiped out. So as you think about, you know, your future and your careers, things aren't going to last. I'll give you an example. Take the automotive industry. You talk to the millennial generation about automobiles and, you know, what kind of engine do you want under the hood and what kind of driving experience do you want? And they look at you like, you didn't get the memo? We don't even want to drive the car. We want the car to drive itself. And by the way, we'd rather not be in the car, but if we have to be, we want it to park itself, take me to my favorite restaurant, pay the meter, actually, in fact, pay for the restaurant on my way out because I don't really need to be wasting time with credit cards because they're useless too. So every single industry right now is in a state of complete chaos and transformation if they make things. That's what we see. And we see this in every single industry we do business with.
Anything with banking the unbanked.
All right, so I'll give you an example. Let's take an example. I had this presentation at a large technology conference in Germany with Chancellor Merkel. And I adopted a woman named Christina Marula from South Africa. And what was fascinating about Christina is she had a spaza. For any of you that have been to South Africa, that would be the version of Bill McDermott's store, only it's even smaller. And basically, she spent 80% of her profits going from town to town to buy things to put into her automobile, to drive back to the store, to put on the shelf to sell. 80% of her profits were gone. But the worst thing was, her son had to stay home from school to run the spaza when she was driving around getting the things, which caused him to miss his educational opportunities, and she really wasn't going very far because she wasn't making much money. With one simple mobile application, we automated her supply chain and did all of her buying and selling in a digital application on a simple cell phone. Then we got the idea, hey, wait a minute. If you think about India and you think about Africa, 7 of the 10 fastest growing markets in the world are in Africa. Yeah, they're small as you measure revenues, but they're huge opportunities if you could just get to people because they're in these remote locations. So we partnered with a bank, Standard Bank in South Africa, with a concept to bank the unbanked. And why is it that we can't have a digital banking process on the cell phone? After all, people miss their meals in Africa just to be initiated in the economy on a device. So why can't we let them open up a bank account digitally? And why can't we make it easy enough that the whole thing could be done in less than 90 seconds? That has resulted in 7,000 people per day getting initiated into the modern economy by Standard Bank with a simple mobile application tethered to those many devices that are out there. We've done this in India and other parts of the world. There you have a dematerialized example as well. Think about all the steps. Think about all the buildings. Think about all the forms. They're all gone. And if you relied on them to drive your profits, well, they were all demonetized and dislocated because of the device. You good with that? Well, look, I know you got a busy day. Jimmy. Sure.
When you think about financial services, that point, so all these banks and branches and all this
Right.
stuff, that can't exist in 25 years.
This is the example of dematerializing an entire business model. I have no understanding in my mind how they could be there in 25 years. I can't make that leap. And that's because you don't want it. And there's not going to be enough people that are baby boomers in 25 years that haven't yet figured out how to get something done on a device. So it's game over for all those old business models. I'll give you another example. If you're running a financial services firm today, I was with Brian Moynihan 2 days ago with Bank of America speaking to his leadership team. Oh, by the way, he got his law degree here, right? You're everywhere. You're just everywhere. You're a powerhouse. And it was amazing because the idea was people will spend 40% more time on their mobile device shopping your products and your services than they will if they're on a PC. And then you stretch that into like the Facebook world. I mean, Facebook doubled their market cap because their advertisement on mobile is up 40%. So it's like if you can show a bridge to the future and you can relate to the consumer on this mobile, I really believe you can completely dematerialize and demonetize yesterday's business models. And that's the concept we had in 2010 when we made a statement which wasn't popular then, mobile is the new desktop. Very simple idea. And we took off with that and ran. And that caused us to do a lot of things, in terms of our M&A strategy, our organic growth strategy, the big picture, the big idea. So look, you've given me a lot to be proud of today because I got to speak in front of one of the great universities in the entire world. And you should be massively proud of yourself to be in the University of Notre Dame. This is one of the really special places on the planet Earth. Not just because of its academic excellence, but because of its culture and its leadership. And you all stand for something in the world, and the world needs you. So go and make the world a better place and do great things for people. It'll come back to you 1,000 times. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bill, thank you for another great presentation.
Thank you.
I mentioned the word another because this is Bill's third presentation in the last 3 or 4 weeks here.
Thank you.
And we are all thinking about how to work you harder to serve Notre Dame.
Thank you.
So with that, please accept these presents as our token of our appreciation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Roger. Thank you, sir. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.